Mr. Trump for long has demonized any recognition of gender diversity and inclusion, deeming it woke culture. His transphobic utterings have received big cheers from his supporters. His biggest target has been transgender women in sport and gender-affirming care for children. He has said one of his first moves as president will be to keep men out of women's sport. Now, how exactly this executive order will work beyond passports and visas is still a bit of a mystery. For example, the US military recruits transgenders. What happens to them? While some clarity will come in the next few days, the plan is to codify it into law within 30 days. Now, the biggest support for Mr. Trump's binary vision comes from Elon Musk. Musk famously dissed his own son Wilson for changing his sex, taking to his own platform X to say that his son was dead for him, killed by the woke mind virus. Musk's transgender daughter Jenna had then responded, saying her father was cruel, and as a child he often berated her publicly for being too feminine. America's slide back into the Stone Ages now means that there will be no third gender option in US passports or school and university certificates. Any institution that makes an attempt at gender diversity will face the risk of a funding cut. Just by the way, India does recognize the third gender. In a landmark judgment in the Supreme Court of India in 2014, the Chief Justice of India had said that it is the right of every human to choose their gender and asked the government of India to give quotas to transgender people in jobs and education. The question this evening is this: what exact problem does Mr. Trump have with the trans and LGBT plus community? And will US courts allow Mr. Trump's new definition of gender to go through? I'm putting that question to my guests who are joining me this evening from America and from India as well. Thank you all very much for your time. Akash Agarwal is an LGBT plus activist joining us in the broadcast, transitioning from a man to a woman. You're in your second or your third phase?
It's second phase.
Second phase,
yeah.
Okay. Sara Spector is a political and legal pundit. She's joining us on the broadcast, will be giving us the Democrat point of view. Tehseen Poonawala is a political analyst joining us on the broadcast as well. And David Sofair is a Republican strategist joining us on the broadcast. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for having me.
We hope to have a civilized debate on something that has that has divided opinion across the world. David, I'm coming to you first, and my simple question is why? What exact problem does Mr. Trump have with the third gender, have with the LGBT plus community? I mean, there's a large number of LGBT plus and transgender people who live in your country. What will you do with them if you don't recognize
well, I
them?
think it's very important to state that, that Trump 1.0 actually elected a LGBT into the cabinet, and that's Rick Garnell. So he served there for all 4 years during Trump 1. Now, in regards to transgender and biological males identifying as females, I mean, this is a very dangerous phenomenon in sports and in the American prison systems and in other facets of society. So the return of the two sexes of male and female is a thing that is, it's a sensitive topic. I understand that, and I respect everybody on the panel, and so does the GOP. So let's be very clear here. Now, when it comes to the very controversial thing of putting growth hormones, to children in schools and then mandating that becomes a health risk and an epidemic within itself, and that's been tried and barred in several other Western democracies, including the UK. So that's a very, very dangerous thing that the left, and when I say the left, it's there's the Democrats and then there's the far left, the progressive wings that have promoted these really, and I use the word radical as an accurate term, these radical, wild ideas about gender and children and education and all that stuff is now going to be, which doesn't have common sense or a place in America, it's so that is all going to be
Okay.
looked at and minimized because and when we get to you know uh, hiring people based on the color of their skin or their actual gender, I mean it's just ridiculous. And I think that proves that America didn't want any of this stuff. It didn't
Okay.
work in the current administration. If you looked at some of their picks that was based on color or gender, I mean, it wasn't for the America first, or it wasn't for anybody first. It took the country back. And who did it hurt the most? The middle class. And that's who's suffering in America. And it's the first time that we all have the same things as a commonality, which is why the most
David, can I
unpopular
ask you this?
why the
Can I
most
ask you
unpopular
this?
yes.
You have said, okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you here.
No, please.
I just wanted to, take off from something you said. You said it's a dangerous trend when men start identifying as women and trying
Absolutely.
to change their sex. I want to ask you why that is dangerous. Isn't that a choice? There are men who don't feel like men, feel like women. They want to transition. There are women who don't feel like women, want to transition into being men, much like Akash here in the studios. Why is
Sure.
that dangerous?
So why is it dangerous? I'll tell you, because they're taking experimental drugs and hormones, right? Which is completely unproven, and it is a very dangerous thing for the human body to consume. And if you look at that, I'm saying it's very dangerous more so for kids and for children under 18. But and it's also very dangerous to have a biological man participating in women's sports, like let's say boxing, for example, or in the prison system, right? These are, it's just that is very dangerous.
Okay, Sara Spector, just come in here. You represent the other side of the debate. The fact is that Donald Trump is back. He is back with a bigger mandate. He has more political legitimacy than he had last time, which means a lot of people in America have resonated with the transphobic sentiment that has been expressed through his campaign. I want to ask you whether the opposition in America, whether the LGBT plus community, the trans community in America is in a position to stall Mr. Trump, because what he's saying is that within 30 days, this loose definition of two genders will be codified into law.
Are they in a position? This is a very, very broad law. This doesn't just target transgender in sports. This is just an extremely broad executive order. I'm not sure how it's going to translate into statute, but my guess is the statute is also going to be extremely broad. And it's going to, my guess is it's going to end up being up to individual states and federal judges to interpret the law. And I have a feeling that depending on where they file these lawsuits, it's going to be interpreted in different ways. Mr. Trump has known he was going to be president now for over a month and a half. He's probably been writing these transphobic laws for a long time, and he definitely made this overly broad so that he could do a wide sweep toward the transgender community, and veiling it toward protection of women. It's for my protection. Again, not only does he make women seem helpless and basically the victims in all this, because I can tell you, as a woman, I don't feel victimized by the transgender community. And they're just going to use, I believe, this law to go ultimately to women having rights to go to college, to get scholarships in sports. I think this is a huge slippery slope. And they're using this fear of the other, this fear of what they have made outcasts, the transgender community. Just what Jesus embraced. We're the outcast. Ironically, these same far-right Christians are going after the transgender community, making them outcasts and making them, demonizing them. And it's just so dangerous. And I believe with the way that we are embracing Trump right now in America, and especially in the red states, it's going to be a very, very dangerous and sad state for the gay community, the LGBTQ community, and my heart goes out to them.
Okay, David, can I then quickly ask you, I understand the executive order is very broad. No one really has clarity on how this will work beyond the fact that a US passport and visas will only have two sexes, which is male and female. There will be no third gender. I want to ask you what happened. You know, like Indians, the Americans are very proud of their military as well. And the US military allows transgender. So your military has transgender personnel as well. What does Mr. Trump do about them? Does he say, okay, you don't identify as male or female, you identify as transgenders, out you go? Again, my question is, there is such a large transgender LGBT plus community in America and across the world. What will you do with them?
Well, you know, in respect to the American military, there is not a huge LGBTQ plus community within the American Army. And then when we actually boil it down to actual transgenders, there's less than a percent, it's a fraction of a percent of, you know, all American citizens who actually identify as that, to be clear. But that is a question that we'd really have to refer to the State Department, and we would have to see how that would be executed. So, you know, let's see how that will go forward. As he's not stipulated.
I understand that, you know, at this point of time, beyond Trump having said yes, beyond what Mr. Trump has said and what we have read in that executive order, there isn't much clarity. But can I just get Akash in? Akash, the US government officially is now saying that the word gender will not be used in all official communication. The word sex will be used. And the word sex will be used because it is a biological reality. You are either male or you are female. While gender, they say, gender is a subjective concept that is disconnected with biological reality. I want to ask you how the transgender community, we know how the transgender community is reacting in the United States of America. You're watching all of this play out in India, many thousands of miles away. How are you reacting to it as a man who's transitioning into a woman?
I would say I'm a human transitioning into a human only. Why are we so constructively objectifying you're a man or a woman, right? We're human first. Do America forgotten the fact that they're human and they're human first? Also, a co-panelist said it's a dangerous trend. You know what is dangerous trend? Is to breaching into people's privacy. The dangerous trend is someone self-proclaimed becomes a messiah for women in sports. That's a dangerous trend. The trend which is dangerous is to giving bats and sticks in people's hand and telling them to be the moral policing. And the right wing back in US is not at all only those who are straight or who are men and women. There is a support group from the community itself for right wing. Back home in India, we also have a right wing group which is supporting to the right wing ideology of policies. What about them? Also, you have to understand it is the first and the initial thought against the diversity at large. I can really talk about it being just a man and a woman and an LGBTQ issue, but let's not forget how and what he said for the H-1B visa. And the diaspora for the Indian community was all enchanted because the kind of opinion he had against diversity.
But now he's saying H-1 visa is a very good program. The point is...
So are we going to trust somebody who's going to wake up from one side of a bed and say it's all good and the other side of bed he sleeps and he says it's all bad?
No, here's the question.
See, Trump will go and come and
Mr. Trump says all of this transgender business is all woke stuff.
Oh, perfect.
The fact is that you cannot have government policy and reservations and diversity in universities, in government departments based on all this wokeism.
No, I think he should be worried about the fact that at least he should be the last one giving moral policings to people back in their homes. Because let's not forget the casinos he used to run when he was a shrewd businessman. I would be very, very open to say this, that he's the last one to tell people what to do or what not to do, because he was the most obscene businessman, shrewd, while he was all doing business. I think this is also a business tactic.
Okay.
Yeah. So instead of telling people who they wish to be, he should really bring in a policy where he can implement something for the effect so-called sports issues, so-called women in sports. But the idea is you should bring a policy.
Okay.
But it is easier to ban than to bring in change.
Okay. Tessin, could you just come in here and tell me where you stand on this issue? Because the Supreme Court of India is very clear on where they stand and where India stands. In 2014, we recognized the third gender. The government has been told, let there be quotas in jobs and educational institutes for the transgender. America is going the opposite way.
Thank you. Good evening, Shreya. Thank you for having me on the show. At the onset, let me clarify. I do stand for the LGBTQ plus rights. I also do stand for them being allowed to get married. That has always been my public stand. I am as liberal as it gets. I'm not right-wing. I'm not a rowdy right-wing. I don't believe in violence. But there is a woke disease, and the woke disease has to stop. I am all for Akash's right. If Akash feels he wants to be a girl, I support Akash. Please be a girl. If he wants to be in a relationship with a girl or a guy, as long as he's an adult and she's an adult and they're consensual, I support it. Please go ahead, get married, do what you want. What I don't support is a guy becoming a girl, then entering a girls' sports tournament and beating up that woman. That's not accepted in boxing, that's happening in wrestling, that's happening, or swimming, that's happening. That's not accepted. What you want to do in your bedroom, please go ahead and do it. Get married. I'm all for it. Number two, look, I am not for children below the 18 or 16, whatever you see psychologically is the right age for deciding what their gender is. You are just two sexes. Now, Shreya, if I may just speak openly, because we are all adults here, this is a channel which mostly adults watch. All of our bones is the same. So, Shreya, 100 years from now, your bones and my bones, when our body skeleton will be found, will all be the same except for our pelvic area region. My pelvic area region bones and yours will be different. That's how I will identify as male and you will identify as female, Shreya, 100 years from now. You can be any gender you want. You can even feel you're a Chinese pigeon. I have no problem with that. Please feel you're a Chinese pigeon, but that does not give you the right. As today I feel like a male, but tomorrow I feel like a female, but I am a biological male and I will enter a girl's bathroom. It makes girls uncomfortable. I am for transgender rights. I'm for transgender bathrooms. I'm for transgender sports. I'm for transgender reservations. I'm for their names on passports as transgenders. I recognize all of those gender diversity, but you can't today, me as a male, suddenly now feel, listen, I come to the Times Now studio, your Mirror Now studio, and suddenly now I feel today, Shreya, I got up the wrong side of the bed, as Akash said, and I feel like a woman, so I'm going to use the woman's bathroom. That's not done. That isn't accepted. So there has to be a line that's drawn. That line has to be accepted, and it is not for kids to decide what a line is. What's happening in the US and even in India, they are addressing children as they, them. No. Address them as boy, girl. Don't confuse them. When they're 16, 18, they want to feel that they want to make a transition. I'm for supporting that. One of my security girls wants to become a guy, and I do support that. But it can't be a 12-year-old. It can't be a 9-year-old. It can't be an 8-year-old. You can't be addressing them as they and them. Please address them as he and she. After that, when they're 16, 18, whatever that psychological age is, which psychologists say, please take a call on that. But please don't be entering women's sports. That's not done. You can't be about, if tomorrow I feel like a woman, I enter a boxing sport and I beat up the girl in MMA. Is that fair?
No, that's a fair point. And therefore, the question also is, was the DEI program pushed to a point where Americans started actually feeling deeply uncomfortable with it? With the sort of support that Mr. Trump and his announcement has got, seems that's the way. But this is a longer debate, I know. Hopefully one of these days we'll have it. Thank you very much for joining us, though. Tehseen, very much. Akash, I'm sorry, I'm completely out of time. Thank you so much. David and Sara, thank you very much for joining us with your views as well. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, slipping into a quick break. Up next, why is Delhi fighting over the Ramayana? That's coming up next. Do stay with us.